Wala pa yung mga pangit ah. Sandali lang guys mag-start tayo. Sandali lang, just a second. Set up lang natin to ha. Para sa bayan! Wang Yi. Philippines. Wang Yi. Philippines. Galit sa Pilipinas. Sige, SMNI tayo tapos South China Sea. Guys, relax lang kayo dyan ha. Relax lang kayo dyan. Papunta na tayo sa exciting part. Ayan na eh.
Sino?
Awan pa eh. The drinks, mother.
I will make na.
Lang guys hinintay ko pa yung ano natin. Ayan na. Yan na si Pamsi. Yes daw sa shutdown. Natutuwa. Alright, let's get the ball rolling guys. This is it. Ayan. Papatapos ng taon pero hindi pa rin tapos ang mga nagaganap sa ating politika. Pag-usapan natin yan as new details come in. Mga kameta, mga kaidarians across different platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, so-called X, yan. Pag-usapan natin yan. Okay guys, ito na. So, official na ito, suspended na ang SMNI for at least 30 days, no? Ito na yung official decision ng minamahal natin gobyerno. Ayan na naman tayo. Yung mga sarcasm ko naman, hindi nagigets sa mga tao. Ibang klase talaga yung yung mga ibang kaibigan natin na DDS, sana naman. Medyo Google naman kayo ng sarcasm, di ba? Yung sinasabi ko na, bakit yun na lang suportahan ng gobyerno, puro kayo nega, it's in a quotation mark for a reason because yun yung sinasabi nyo dati sa mga opposition at yung mga kumukontra sa mga bara-bara at kapalpakan ni Digong dati, alright? So, inuulit ko lang yung sinasabi nyo sa sarili nyo para magkaroon ka ng self-awareness, alright? Huwag na kayo magdrama-drama na si Darian nakakapag goosebumps na ganito. It's sarcasm, my goodness. Anyone has bothered to follow me throughout the years would know that, I throw a little bit of spices and sarcasm here and there. But bago tayo pumunta sa SMNI and of course also discussing the latest sa West Philippine Sea because pansin niyo kanina marami tayong mga tweets about misconceptions and myths sa West Philippine Sea. Let's talk about this mga kameta, alright? Let's talk about this. Well, first of all, I want to say lang na, before we talk about fake news and red tagging and marites and all of that, sana naman, di ba? I'm saying this because, of course, kaibigan natin itong mga family na ito. I just hope that people will start trying to make marites or making all sorts of, questionable claims and, give nefarious angles, no? Dun sa trahedya na nangyari sa dun sa dun sa tragedy, no, and the grief that the Gibbs family is going through. All right, so I'm just praying for the Gibbs family as they go through these difficult times, and I'm also hoping and praying that people will give them the kind of privacy and respect that they deserve. All right, so nakikiramay ulit tayo sa family ni John Gibbs, yung isa natin kaibigan who has been on our podcast on multiple times. So yon, alright? I hope na. Kasi marami akong nakikita na kung ano-anong ginagawa ng tao. Please guys, respect naman dyan. Just a bit of respect and give a little bit of privacy sa family nila Gibbs, alright? And I would have said this regardless kung kaibigan ko sila or hindi, but since of course kaibigan natin si John Gibbs, medyo nakakalungkot, no, na some people are trying to, make innuendos and make all sorts of different marites out of this very sad and tragic situation, no? Alright, let's go to the meat of discussion today. First of all, ito na, inaabangan ng lahat ang leading media quote-unquote channel ng bansa. Ito na talaga. Ang mga minamahal natin mga journalist, ayon nga kay Harry Roque, itong mga ating bayani. Alright, itong mga ating mga bayani, they're facing challenges now. Alright, para kaya kailangan natin sumuporta daw sa due process, sa ating mga bayani, sa press freedom. Alright? Alright. Okay, so ito, official na ito. So the National Telecommunication Commission has suspended the broadcast operations of Swara Sog Media Corporation, better known as, or also known as, Sunshine Media Network International. Wow, talagang next level, talagang international talagang level, no? For 30 days. Hindi naman forever, guys. Wala naman daw forever, pero for 30 days daw yan, for alleged violation of its franchise. Alright? So, kanina lang na-announce ito ng National Telecommunications Commission na nag-issue siya on December 19 a show cause order against the media network with a 30-day suspension of its radio and television stations. Of course, katulad ng pinag-usapan natin the other day, yung show ni Digong, ating ex-president, was also suspended and all. But it looks like the suspension was not only President Duterte's show, but it looks like the whole network will be suspended for at least 30 days. Now, of course, we're also trying to catch up naman dun sa development on social media. Let's see if SMNI is going to continue with their online publications and all. Because remember, this is about the, di ba? Ito yung sa TV, di ba? So ibang usapan siguro ng online. Let's see what's going to happen there, because alam natin na not long ago YouTube and Facebook and different kind of platforms also made necessary countermeasures in light of not only questionable practices of this so-called media channel, but also in light of the alleged crimes by the, in a way, quote-unquote alleged owner of this media company. So it gave SMNI 15 days from receipt of the order. So this is December 19 para i-explain yung kanilang pinaggagawa why the company should not be administratively sanctioned. Kasi nga sabi ni Harry, bayani sila. Hindi mo gagawin yan sa mga bayani. Press freedom, due process. Yan talaga mahal na mahal lang. Alam niyo guys, itong due process, press freedom, itong mga pinakamahalagang mga values for Tatay Digong, for sa mga red taggers, for sa mga so-called journalists na more like, you know what I'm saying, right? Mga ganyan. Alright, yan. Okay, so the NTC's move was in response to sa House resolution which urged an act on SMNI's action after the latter was involved in red tagging and airing false information ukol kay House Speaker Martin Romualdez. Ito yung yung kunyaring expose daw na 1.8 billion daw ang ginastos, no, for international travels. Ako naman sabi ko, wow, talagang mahilig sa expose, mahilig sa investigative journalism. Pero wala silang sinabi yata doon sa sinabi ng Commission on Audits sa mga travel expenses ng Department of Education. Okay? Mukhang wala naman eh. Kung may nakita kayo, please correct us, send us, because alam mo na, di ba? Alam mo na natin this. Okay, the measure filed by PERSA ng mga bayaning atleta, di ba? Bayani versus bayani, guys. Di pa kayo natutuwa? Mga laban ng mga bayani. So, ang PERSA ng bayaning atleta, PBA Party List Representative Margarita Nograles, ito po ay itong resolution po was adopted by lower chamber earlier this month. Ayon naman dun sa resolution na yan, SMNI has violated at least 3 provisions of Republic Act number 11422, which was signed in August 2019, guys, remember, tatay time, and which granted yung network the legislative franchise to operate for 25 years. Wow, big time. So let's not forget, this whole so-called media is really a product of the Duterte era. You know, it really came into being, it got its franchise, 2019, and of course, we know just over a year later on, nawala yung pinakamalaki at arguably the most prestigious media network in Philippines, which is ABSCBN, diba? Of course, I'm saying this as someone who has worked for all the 3 media channels, GMA Network, ABS-CBN, and of course now with our folks in TV5 and One News. So, right, so I've worked with all of them, and so wala tayong bias dito, no? We're just talking about based on our observation of facts, no? Anyway, This week, two of SMNI shows were preventively suspended. So, preventive suspension ito. Doon sa 14 days naman following host Jeffrey Selly's airing of yung claim, yung mga fake claims kay Romualdez. At also, of course, yung show ni Tatay Digong. Imagine niyo guys, napunta pa sa Bloomberg yan. Pati sa Bloomberg News. Napunta itong mga developments na yun. Doon ko pa nakita yan. Alright? Okay, Senator Amy Marcos. Ayan, ito talaga. Si Senator Amy Marcos. Ang habang usapan to. Ay naman kay Senator Amy Marcos. Ito, talagang close friend ni Tatay Digong yan. Todo defense naman siya at she criticized the NTC for supposedly sending a chilling effect to the press by issuing the order. Well, in fairness, I don't totally disagree with the chilling effect argument, except this chilling effect argument should have been raised way earlier, like 2020, 2021, diba? Ito yung time na tinanggalan ng ABSCBN, no, ng franchise. I would say this chilling effect argument should have been raised way earlier, especially when we were talking about really legitimate media and legitimate journalists, no? Okay, I'm just saying, all right? It's just quite rich for people to start talking about chilling effect and due process and media freedom when I'm not sure these people were really speaking about those things when a real media channel, media network was actually facing a very, very difficult situation back in 2020, right? Now, it is incumbent upon the NTC to be very judicious in suspending entire operations of media entities, as such actions will have a chilling effect on press freedom. There's nothing prudent in NTC's action today, ayon kay Senadora. The senator also accused the commission of denying SMNI's right to due process. Sabi niya, why must we shut down all those who do not agree with us, not even allowing the chance to explain first? How could the NTC issue a show cause order but simultaneously hand down a 30-day suspension? Are we afraid that SMNI might be right? Are we afraid of the truth? Well, I'm not afraid of the truth, especially if you want to talk about the horrors of martial law, if you want to talk about kapalpakan ng dating administration, there's so much we can talk about, right? I also wonder when it comes to truth, ano po yung mga reports ng SMNI when it comes to confidential fund issue, when it comes to DepEd, about yung mga reports ng Commission on Audit on DepEd, yung mga ganun, right? I'm just saying, I'm just asking, I'm not saying anything, I'm just asking, right? So the House Committee on Legislative Franchise recently held hearings dun sa SMNI report. And of course, there are some who are saying we should go all the way and just revoke the franchise of SMNI altogether. Now, the interesting thing is other folks have spoken out big time in favor of this. And if you remember, there was a vlog I had with Ronald Diamas the other week, and we discussed the clear difference between the case of ABS-CBN, really a legitimate media, and, well, this case of a so-called media, international level. All right, talaga international. SMNI. All right, SMNI. Okay, ito. May statement na ang mga iba't ibang leaders, iba't ibang grupo. Well, first of all, as you notice, there's no rallying effect here. None of the major journalists or major activists or legitimate journalists in this country or anywhere in the world have rallied to the cause of the mga bayani ng SMNI, and I'm not sure this is really about jealousy or rivalry. I think it's because there's some fundamental concerns about the ontological differences between SMNI and ABS-CBN, if I put it that way. No, anyway, may mga statements na ngayon. Si House Deputy Minor Leader and ACT Teachers Party List Representative Franz Castro, sinabi niya na ito yung reaction niya dun sa suspension na yan. With the recent hearing by the House Committee on Legislative Franchise on SMNI, as well as some of the documents that we have seen, it seems that SMNI itself is a threat to press freedom with its advocacy of violence, disinformation, and intolerance. All right, so very clearly, right off the bat, let's call a spade, right? Parang ganun yung positioning Franz Castro. Like, excuse me, we're not talking about really press freedom here. We're probably not even talking about a real media channel or not journalism in any serious sense of the word. But what we're talking about, ayon kay Franz Castro, is a threat to press freedom and a media network, a bunch of pundits posing as journalists who are advocating for, quote, violence, disinformation, and intolerance. right? Hindi ito tulad sa kaso ng ABS-CBN na sinadyang pinasara ng mga Duterte dahil sa pagbatikos sa kanila. Ito yung ayon kay Franz Castro, referring to the case of ABS-CBN, the loss of franchise of ABS-CBN a few years ago. And again, I'm wondering, yung mga ano ngayon, nag-iingay ngayon, yung mga nag-uusap ukol sa due process, press freedom, all right? What were you saying again when ABS-CBN was being shut down? And let's just not forget, ABS-CBN, medyo legit international media ito, right? As it stands, sabi ni Castro, the SMNI issue is shaping out not to be a press freedom issue as its host and quote-unquote talents want to project. Alright, so hindi siya naniwala dito sa mga, mga hanash na yan, mga hero hanash. Alright, so, let's do the analysis here. So, we went through the latest development here. So what happened here is kind of like, I don't know, splitting the difference. In a sense that hindi totally na-suspend ang SMNI, hindi totally na-revoke yung kanilang franchise as some were expecting. But at the same time, it looks like hindi lang shot across the bow ang nangyari with the recent investigation into the SMNI practices and what some see as really excesses of this media channel, if not at least excesses of some of his programs or some of his so-called anchors or journalists, right? So, mukhang the powers that be kind of split the difference and kind of said, okay, hindi lang ito, shot across the bow. There's going to be something done about this. There's going to be a suspension. But, I think, well, I think there are people out there, and this is what I always say, who are saying this is not the right time to totally declare war on the other side, because we know this is not about just that media channel. This is about a bigger showdown between the House of Marcos, well, minus Amy, and the House of Duterte, right? In that sense, right? Yeah, of course, there are many gradations to it, but the reality is that the unity team is falling apart, right? And SMNI is kinda, right, being caught in the middle, right? We can debate about whether that's inadvertent or not so inadvertent, but the reality is that had there been a total suspension of SMNI, then the tone of the tone, cadence, and the trajectory of the steady disintegration of Unity would have taken a much more stark and aggressive form, right? So, for me, what is happening right now is essentially a situation whereby the powers that be are saying, okay, you see, if you cross the lines, there will be repercussions, right? Now, you're not going to get suspended fully this time, but next time, if you keep on doing this, there could be a full suspension. So this was a demonstration of power, but this is also a demonstration of judiciousness on the part of the powers that be, right? Again, with all due respect to claims to institutional independence here and there, but let's not be honest, the Philippines is not Norway, okay? Just to put it mildly, right? This is not a country of rule of law yet, not fully. There have been some improvement on the rule of law front, right? Especially when it comes to, of course, yung kaso ni Leila de Lima. I think there's a 13th fake witness who's been recanting right now. So we're saying talaga na fake talaga yung mga ginawa kay Leila de Lima. So this is not a country of rule of law yet, but there's some improvement in that direction. But having said that, we cannot separate some of the executive decisions that are happening from the broader political picture. Now, let me also add something here, no? Kanina nagtanong tayo kung kailangan ba na yung mga ibang opposition leaders to also come in. Because remember, in a previous vlog, we discussed the fact that there are at least two individuals. One is my former colleague, Atom Aurelio, ito naman, Marcos Aurelius, Atom Araulio, and of course now more recently si Teddy Casino have filed itong lawsuits, civil cases laban kay Badoy, right? And each of them 2 million pesos, I think. So, I'm just saying. SMNI is being suspended, lawsuits are being filed. For me, this raises a bigger question because I think we also already heard from Senator Leila de Lima that she's also looking at going after her tormentors and people who concocted all of those nonsensical cases against her and really, like tortured her on so many levels for more than 5 years, right? Now, going back to this, the question I raise here is, and I asked that kanina sa Twitter. I said, do you think dapat, eto na, diba? Eto na. Ito na siguro yung chance finally ng opposition leaders and lahat ng mga biktima ng red tagging, lahat ng mga biktima ng fake news. Grabe. I mean, guys, let's be honest. Grabe yung nangyari throughout that 5-6 years. You know, all of us know it. All of us know it. I personally know it. Grabe yung ginagawa nila noon, di ba? They will attack you, there will be death threats, and then there was red tagging against a lot of people. Some cases worse than other. Some of our female colleagues even faced, rape, threats, mga ganon. So, many people were tormented. And of course, in the case of Leni Robredo, former Vice President Leni Robredo, grabe yung ginawa sa kanya, di ba? Sobrang binastos siya. They made up all sorts of stories about her family. Grabe yung mga libelous attacks, yung mga bastos, yung mga, di ba, yung mga madam, yung mga ganyan-ganyan, di ba? Well, let's say, we can talk about the, but anyway, alam nila where that was supposed to go. But you get what I'm saying, right? You get what I'm saying? So much impunity in that 5 to 6 years. And now, from what I understand, ICC is making its moves already. And in the coming months, we may finally see some development on the ICC front. From what I understand, some of the groundwork is being conducted as we speak. All right, I'm not gonna say more than that, but my understanding is that some groundwork is already being done as we speak. And so, wag kayong magtataka kung bigla, right, may mga announcements from International Criminal Court, right? Kaya, ewan ko kay isang senador dyan, yung iba, mukhang gets na rin nila na ito yung nangyari ngayon. Anyway, going back to this, I don't know. I mean, a part of me is saying, wag natin guguluhin na to. Let's just, see how things go. But another part of me is saying like, maybe this is a time to remind everyone, especially those opportunistic people, right? Especially those who, committed many grievous acts during the previous administration. Maybe it's time to remind them that there's something called accountability, that there's some form of justice. And as I always said, hindi maging rule of law country ang Pilipinas if people do not leverage our existing legal institutions and our existing laws to push for accountability and justice. You see, it's much easier to come up with a constitution in the sense of, drafting a constitution and all. It's always much more difficult to effectuate or operationalize that constitution. Because effectuating and operationalizing a constitutional order requires strengthening of the institutions, but it also requires active citizens who are willing to fight for their rights and are willing to stand up against abuses and tyranny and all sorts of bastardization of our democratic institutions. Kailangan yan. So, yung mga countries, yung mga bansa na nakikita natin ngayon na medyo advanced, matino-tino yung kanilang bansa, they were not like that overnight. It took decades, if not centuries of struggle. I mean, just look at the history of, a struggle for suffrage, how men and women and minorities had to fight centuries and decades until there was universal suffrage. So a cursory look at history tells us that rule of law doesn't come by its own. That you have to fight for rule of law, and one way of fighting for rule of law is, make sure that there's accountability and justice. Now, of course, realistically speaking, you have to also be reasonable. Realistically speaking, medyo malabo yan in the past. But it looks like the environment right now is much more amenable to pushing for some sort of accountability. These suspension orders that we're seeing, these hearings that we're seeing in the Congress, etc. I'm not saying that, we're talking about institutions of the highest, moral ascendancy, to put it mildly. But the wind is blowing in a different direction. Now, this is not necessarily a progressive direction, but it could become a more progressive direction if opposition leaders do their job, if progressive leaders do their job. I think in terms of public relations, I think in terms of messaging, sobrang successful sila Franz Castro. I think Franz Castro has kind of established herself as one of the big voices out there in the political scene, and definitely one of the opposition leaders. I think Riza Hontiveros has done a fantastic job in terms of positioning herself not only as a kind of an activist senator, but also as a constructive legislator. I think the opposition in general is doing a lot of correct moves, and dun sa, Christmas party lang naman daw. But pinag-usapan natin kahapon yan, di ba? Dun sa, si Sir Ted, di ba Gilat ang nag-share, di ba? Nakita natin dun, we see embers of a united opposition, right? And I would say, of course, the hero of the month, right? In many ways, Leila de Lima, since she has Since she has managed to get out of her conundrum, and see, I mean, in the case of Leila Dilma, she fought within the framework until the framework, the existing legal framework, proved amenable to her quest for justice. So she got the bail. Now she's out, and she's not just out waiting her time out, right? She's out, and now she's the official speaker of one of the major parties in the country, the oldest continuous party by some measures. Leila de Lima is out posting messages and tweets right and left. I mean, as former Senator Leila de Lima, I saw her. She's very supportive. She constantly expresses solidarity. This is the kind of leader we want. I mean, may pinost tayo about TikTok censoring me when I post anything about West Philippine Sea. Oy, TikTok medyo ngayon hindi na masyado sinisensor. But, come on guys. Last week, yun yung time talaga para mag-post about West Philippine Sea dahil yung bullying nangyari last week. So ngayon, even if biglang yung mga TikTok post ko ay medyo na po-publish na, wala na yung timing. Alright? So, ewan ko na anong reasoning nila dyan. But, going back to this guys, sige, bukasan na natin pag-usapan ng West Philippine Sea. Sorry, I'm a little bit tired. The thing is this, this is it. This is the moment. Yes, I mean the opposition didn't get perhaps the president they wanted, right? In fact, the president right now is just the junior of a former dictator. But it's not like this president is acting like a dictator, right? It's not like this president is bringing down the hammer, preventing the effectuation of justice. I think there is a historic opportunity for the opposition to correct and amend yung mga mistakes nila in the past. I honestly believe, even during Duterte, the opposition should have fought back harder, especially on the communications front, and especially in terms of leveraging existing laws when there was a complete explosion of fake news and all. Okay, I'll be very honest about this. Kasi, ito yung problema natin nun, di ba? Ito yung naging problema natin nun. For 6 years, there were whole bunch of, a whole cabal of, horrid trolls and worse and all of that. They were just doing whatever they wanted. They were just cowboying their way through. They were just binabastos nila kahit sinong leader, vice-presidente, senador, kung anong mga libelous na sinasabi nila. Then of course, this mega trolls, meta trolls, no, ang ginagawa nila is they create an environment of hate, right? They supercharge the environment, so they normalize yung pagbabastos sa ating mga statesmen, especially women. They normalize attack on media, on journalists. They normalize attack against anyone who spoke their mind and spoke truth to power and spoke their political conscience. And my sense really was, ang hina ng response ng opposition. There was no concerted legal effort to push back against it by leveraging the existing courts and laws against libelous, slanderous fake news. I don't think also there was a concerted public relations effort by the opposition leaders during that time to push back against all of this Dutertismo ideology and penal populism and essentially surrendering to China and all of that. No, I mean sabog. I'll be honest, sabog yung opposition throughout that 5-6 years. I mean, I understand if even the first year of Duterte, medyo sabog sila. I understand that. Everyone was shocked. I was also shocked by how crazy things turned out, even if, as you can see in my book and my writings back then, I kind of see things coming. But it was emotionally shocking, even though it was intellectually and cognitively not so shocking. In fact, I kind of predicted how things were going to turn out under Duterte. But my sense is sobrang hina pa rin yung pushback ng opposition year and year and year. So yeah, I mean, disinformation was an issue, but you don't win the fight by just whining about disinformation, right? You do something about it, right? You fight back against it at the highest levels in a concerted manner. If only we had more leaders like Leila de Lima, I think the opposition would have been 5 to 10 times stronger, even during Duterte time, right? Even during Duterte time. We didn't have to wait for the implosion of the unity team for some of these right things to be done. This should have been done before. But it's done. Tapos na eh. Wala, hindi natin we cannot change the past. But I'm just saying, you cannot change the future if you're not learning the right lessons from the past. And I kept on saying this, may kulang talaga dun sa opposition during time in Digong. And there has to be an acceptance of that. Even the preparation for 2022 elections, may pagkakulang talaga ang opposition. Hindi sila organized, right? And they were up against the combined forces of Duterte's and Marcos's. There was just no way you can beat them, right? Once they combined, tapos ng laban, right? And of course, my frustration, and this is where I made a lot of enemy, I think, among some of the Rabid Dilawan and all of that. Well, whatever, right? The problem is that there was no self-awareness. There was no strategic thinking. There was not a proper accounting of saan sila nagkakulang, right? Kami nga, walang partido, walang backup, etc. And I'm sorry, okay, my career suffered. My career suffered when I began to speak out. Remember, I used to work in another media network, and next thing you know, parang, alam mo na, di ba? Connect the dots, right? My career suffered. But that was the least I could have done, right? To fight for West Philippine Sea, to fight for what is right in the country. Had I had the resources that many opposition leaders had, all those lawyers, all of those PR people, all of that stuff, I would have done 100 times more than what I did during that 5 to 6 years. So I hope some people appreciate where my frustration comes from, because it's not about what you do, it's about what you do compared to what you have. So I saw many journalist friends of ours who had very limited resources risking their lives and pushing the envelope. And in fact, I'll give kudos to Patricia Evangelista, my senior in UP Debate Society, who came out with this fantastic book, really, really wrenching book, about Duterte's drug war, which I just reviewed for Lowy Institute in Sydney, Australia. I already posted that. The title of yung review ko is Manila's Killing Fields, right? The war on the poor, right? I saw many of my colleagues, they fought so hard. They fought so hard, even if sobrang limited resources. Even if most of us could not afford a lawyer. Let's just be honest. Most of us could not even afford a lawyer, right? We didn't have PR teams and all of that. We didn't have any institutional backing. And worse, a lot of us, the opposition, leaders and all, never bothered to even reach out to us or never bothered to show support or anything like that. All right? So, kaya after nung election, sabi ko, eto na talaga, this is a time now we have proven na mali talaga yung ginawa ng opposition throughout those 5 to 6 years under Tigong. And we have to call it out. Now, of course, I made a lot of enemy, but I said whining about disinformation and just blaming all on disinformation is not the solution forward. Because if you just say it's all about disinformation, you're saying something very nasty about our voters. And when you say something nasty and judgy about our voters, good luck sa'yo. Diba? Not to mention, it's intellectually simplistic, if not erroneous. As a lot of us, scholars, in peer-reviewed journal articles and books have written, you have to understand grievance politics. You have to understand that populism, and especially right-wing Duterte-style populism, it thrives in conditions of weakness. Weaknesses of democratic institutions, but weakness of liberal democratic leaders. Because mahina at maraming kapalpakan yung mga liberal democratic leaders, that was the context within which the Dutertismo ideology came in. And that was exactly the context within which Marcoses clawed their way back to the Malacanang. All right? So there has to be an accounting of that. And one way of making up for all of the shortcomings during the time of Digong is to leverage existing institutions to make the most out of this disintegration of the unity, whatever you want to call it, to push for accountability, right? Better late than never, right? Better than late than never. So yun yung sinasabi ko. So there's a part, the other part of me is also arguing that way. But you see, I'm so open-minded in a good way. And I try to be as self-aware and judicious and fair as possible. I always also tell myself, Richard, baka naman hindi mo alam sinasabi mo. Like, you intellectually grasp what is happening, but you have to also grasp the emotions, the logistics, the organizational issues, all the limitations, human limitations that plague the opposition and liberal democratic leaders in the country. Okay, I understand that. Maybe they know something I don't know. Maybe they better understand the country than me, sure. But last time I checked, I got a lot of things right when it comes to the direction of this country and foreign policy and all. Not because, I'm like the best analyst out there. No, it's because I studied other countries similar to the Philippines. I saw how they ended up, and I felt if we don't do the right thing, we're going to go in the wrong direction. All right? So what we learn from history is that if you do not fight for democracy is not going to fight for itself. It's going to be vulnerable to circumvention. Right? If you do not fight for press freedom, what's going to happen is bastardization, adulterization of press freedom. If you do not leverage existing legal institutions, then you're not going to have a rule of law, you're going to have a rule by law. You see, the preposition is very important. Of versus by. Rule of law means you have predictable, uniform apply laws in a country. You have accountability and justice regardless of who you're talking about, the richest person, the most powerful people. Rule by law is a situation of weaponization of existing laws in order to punish and to whip opposition, voices of conscience. So if you want to move from rule by law towards rule of law, and this is a spectrum, right? It's like 1 to 10, right? Obviously we're not 10, but we can go 6, 7, 8 if the right people do the right moves in the coming months, in the coming years, all right? Because, eto yun, People can take out their popcorns about the unity. People can take out their popcorns about SMNI. Sige lang, go ahead. Have your own Schadenfreude. Okay? I already expressed my criticism of that mindset. But there is a historic opportunity here for the opposition to do the right thing and to fix all of the shortcomings they had in the past. All right? And my advice, get rid of those rabid people, right? Who insist on insulting the voters, who insist on insulting any real analyst, who insist on insulting survey agencies in favor of, I don't know, Google Trends or whatever nonsense out there. All right? Okay? You get what I'm saying? Okay? So, yun lang. Yun lang. That's my best of. Sorry, I wanted to talk about West Philippine Sea. Kasi nainis din ako sa lahat ng mga gaslighting na nangyari sa atin. Parang Pilipinas pang may kasalanan na may tensions daw sa West Philippine Sea. Yung mga kaibigan natin dyan sa ASEAN, alright? Or yung mga ibang kaibigan natin dito, di ba? Yung mga tatay style na, oh, Philippines, Western. Excuse me, there's nothing Western with standing up for your rights. And there's nothing Asian with not standing up for your rights kasi takot ka sa China, right? If I have to mention Vietnam, Vietnam is as Asian it can get, and it has been fighting against empires after empire after empire, 1,000 years with China, against the Mongolian Empire, against Maoist China, against the French, against the Americans, so on and so forth. Palaban sila. That's very, very Asian, right? So please don't drop this nonsensical civilizational argument. No, the Philippines is doing the right thing. The Duterte strategic era was an anomaly. From Aquino to Marcos Jr., the Philippines is once again the only ASEAN country that is daring to stand up to bullying on all fronts. You see, Vietnam never did the legal strategy. We did the legal strategy. We're doing the operational strategy. We're doing the diplomatic strategy. So let's stop gaslighting ourselves. So in the same sense that I say, the opposition should fight for rule of law in the country. And I hope the best for all the good people inside the administration, right? You may not like Marcos or you may not like sinong nanalo last elections, but I know for a fact there are many good people working in this government, right? I know them personally, quiet lang sila, but they're doing the right thing for the country. I'm just also saying this, the Philippines has to fight for respect and recognition of its legitimate rights on their own clause by staying its course. Huwag tayo magpa-saywar, huwag tayo magpa-intimidate, huwag tayo magpa-bully, huwag tayo magpa-loser mindset. The Philippines has to stay its course until it earns the respect of the other side. And I'm 100% for engagement, I'm 100% for diplomacy, but it has to be from a position of strength. That's what I'm going to talk about. All right? So, anyway, sorry, napahaba itong rant natin. Pero ulitin natin yan. Okay, ganito. Since wala tayong time, let me just shorten this again. Kasi I promised to talk about West Philippines, so sorry. So give me some chance to talk about it. Tanggalin natin itong SMNI na to. Okay. This is really, okay, this is yours. Okay. So I'll say this once again. When it comes to the West Philippine Sea, we should not allow ourselves to be gaslighted by the bullies or the enablers of the bullies. The Duterte era was an anomaly. It was a strategic anomaly. Because if you look at both President Aquino and President Marcos Jr., they have stood up. And they have made sure, that hindi tayo magpapabully lang. Alright? They have made sure that on all fronts, we fight for the Philippines' legitimate rights. There's nothing Western with fighting for sovereign rights. That's insulting. That's an insult to Asians and non-Western people. Every self-respecting, dignified country has to fight for their sovereign rights, especially if the sovereign rights were, legitimized under an international arbitration body, in this case, the 2016 Arbitral Tribunal Award, under the aegis of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, Article 287, Annex 7. Go there, mag-aral kayo, huwag kayo magpaloko or magpauto-uto dun sa mga propagandists. Alright, let's be absolutely clear about that. So both President Aquino and President Marcos Jr. are doing what is right. They're moving on all fronts. No other ASEAN country has done this. No other ASEAN country has stood up to China on diplomatic, military, and legal front. We're the only ASEAN country that has done that. So to dismiss the Philippines as a kind of a Western country just because of our treaty alliances and all, that's an insult to any courageous nation standing up for their rights. And I hope yung mga ibang friends natin sa ASEAN, if they don't have anything helpful to say, or they don't have any support to provide us, better just keep your advice to yourself. Now, to be fair, I think, when you talk about Singapore, Indonesia, Vietnam, etc., they are doing their own thing. But what we really need is more courageous solidarity, right? Because what's happening right now is the Philippines is being bullied right and left, Philippines is being gaslighted, and the Philippines so far cannot rely on the ASEAN to back it up. But naturally, it should be ASEAN that should be there for the Philippines. And I hope, if not ASEAN 10, then at least few of the key ASEAN countries, especially Vietnam, but also Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia, will stand by the Philippines in one way or another. Because either we're gonna stand together or gonna, or otherwise, we're gonna be picked apart, right? One by one, right? So this is really the base that we have to deal with. There has to be minimums when it comes to dealing with the China challenge. Now, to be absolutely clear, I am for negotiations with China. We don't want war. China also doesn't want war. All right? Do not insult China by saying, oh, China is going to go to war. No, China is a sophisticated rising power. All right? They have many mistakes. They make mistakes. Sometimes there's hubris and all, but at the end of the day, they're far more sophisticated than, I don't know, Putin or some of the other aggressive revisionist powers in history. So how you deal with them is this. You stand your ground, you stay your course, you earn their respect, no matter how grudgingly, and then from that position, push for a kind of a compromise from a position of strength, right? Now, I am for joint exploration or development, but it has to recognize the Philippine sovereign rights. President Marcos Jr. has mentioned that he is for joint exploration with China, but it has to be a service contract. It has to recognize the Philippine sovereign claims in the area. We are for all sorts of different cooperation and cooperative schemes with China, but it has to be from a position of strength. So by adopting loser mindset, by blaming ourselves, by gaslighting ourselves, right? By absolving bullies of responsibility and accountability, we are doing a disservice to our country and disservice to a lot of people, including Rizal and our Ilustrados and a lot of our heroes who fought hard. They made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. That's the least we can do. All right. On that note, thank you very much. Maraming salamat. Pasensya na again if some people got hurt with what I've said. I get passionate sometimes. You can see I really believe in what we say, with what we do. I really care for our country because I know our country can always do better. I always believe that. But you need to push. You need to nudge, right? This is like alam mo yung mga Hollywood movies na sports team. Alam mo yung medyo kulelat yung sports team. Ano yung movie ni Curveball ba yan? What was that? Yung movie ni Brad Pitt, diba? That's what I'm saying, right? Like, we have to accept we have certain weaknesses and all, but we have to also accept our potential for greatness, right? We're not going to be a major power, but we can be relatively decent middle power in the 21st century. But we have to get rid of that loser mindset and we have to believe in our ability to improve. Huwag tayong magsinungaling. Marami tayong mga weaknesses, marami tayong mga problema, right? But we focus on our strengths, we accelerate the improvement of ourselves in the right direction, and also we deal with our weaknesses. If we continue to do that in 10, 15, or even shorter, in 5 years, maybe you're going to see very, very good improvements. And honestly, in my case personally, I remember very well, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you said Philippine Coast Guard, in terms of capabilities, great people, patriotic people, capabilities were nowhere close to where we should be. Today, the Philippine Coast Guard is the most developed Coast Guard in the entire ASEAN region, right? And they have the best experience of dealing with bullying. We are number one in ASEAN as far as Philippine Coast Guard as far as Coast Guard capability is concerned. We had to earn that. We had to invest in our capabilities, and we had to earn that by standing our ground. So if the Philippine Coast Guard can do it, other branches of the state can do it, the whole nation can do it. So what I say is not based on just like pipe dream. It's based on actual observation of when we do the right things and stick to it over time, 5 years, 10 years, then you're going to see great results. That's how national development happens. Most of the successful countries today were the countries who made those sacrifices and they had the discipline 20, 30, 40 years ago. So the next generation is benefiting from that. So let's do the right thing so that the next generation of Filipino people can be even more proud of their country and hopefully proud of us for whatever little thing we're doing for our democracy and for the West Philippine Sea. On that note, thank you very much, guys. See, uminom na tayo ng mga kalamansi juice and all. Medyo I need to recover. God bless and talk to you soon. Salamat, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys. Salamat. God bless.